it comes at a price too. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. One of the ways that we have kept the directory, for instance, such a powerful machine, as I call it, and so meaningful to people and that they trust it, is that there isn't commerce allowed on the therapy directory website. Now, you can well imagine the money that we've been offered from pharmaceutical, and look, good for pharmaceutical companies. We love pharmaceutical companies. We're in business with them on the content side. We have a lot of wonderful banner advertising from pharma on pt.com and in the magazine. But for the directory, there is absolutely no. There are no banner ads. You can't buy your way to the top of the list, and that's.
Yeah, you're not all of a sudden presenting Lee Pepper therapist.
Right.
Oh, and then here's another therapist that's advertising side by side, which I really appreciate that.
Welcome back to MasterMined. Lee.
Jeff, good morning.
Good morning. It's always so good to be here.
It is so great to get to be here with you this morning on this beautiful morning here in Nashville.
And today we have a particular treat. We have a titan of the treatment industry.
I know. I got back from my trip to Florida last night late, and then I had to get up at dark 30 to come join us here this morning. But I popped right out of bed because I was so excited to get to see our guest.
I set 3 alarms on my phone, so I was here early. You can vouch for that.
Yep, absolutely.
So I have why don't you introduce our guest, Lee?
Great, absolutely. Well, it is our distinct pleasure to welcome the president and the publisher of Psychology Today, John Thomas. John, welcome to Nashville.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and to see both of you.
And you can vouch that Jeff and I were waiting at the front door for you to arrive. So excited.
I won't say what you said, but yeah. I also set 3 alarms, and I was on time, but I set 3 alarms myself.
That'll be a bonus episode where we can get some.
Right. Behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Well, John, I'm going to start off with sort of just a State of the Union question, and be curious where you take this.
Okay.
So here's the question: what is the state of psychology today?
Oh my goodness! You really did get up early to think of to think of that. I think the answer to that is if you look around at current media, and there are a lot of voices out there that talk about psychology, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. There's one definitive voice, I think, on the subject, and that would be, of course, Psychology Today. But there are it's not a taboo subject in terms of really examining, what's behind human behavior. It's more exposed now than it ever has been, and that's a good thing. That's wasn't the case 20 years ago.
Well, and you mentioned 20 years ago, but, John, I was pointing out that, and this is where the shameless plug for my book comes in, but, in my book, I reference.
Wait.
Yes, I wrote a book.
I was going to say, did you write a book? I had no idea. No.
But I reference Psychology Today in one of my chapters, and, going back, it's been around for 58 years. And when Jeff and I were talking this morning, there's a lot of organizations that have had extinction events, but you all have somehow pivoted. You have excelled during all these moments of change.
It's, literally, just to put an even finer point on it, it's like at each moment where state organizations, quality publications didn't make the transition, but yet Psychology Today has. What do you think that's about?
Well, it's a few factors going into it. And by the way, Lee, your book is fantastic.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that we were referenced in that book. I just had to update our SRDS, which is Standard Rate and Data Service listing, which all publications have to have listings or profiles. In this directory service that's been around forever. And I just had to update us to the 58 year, almost 60 years is how I phrased it. But we began in 1967. I think the key for us is, and and it's something I heard on a recent TED Talk about pivoting. Does that ring a bell? Is that we have we're keenly aware of what's happening in the marketplace, and we do pivot at every turn where we are seeing an obstacle, and we're able to refocus where we're applying our energy. And for us, one of the things has been, for instance, you mentioned print, and there are really three prongs to psychology today. We still do have a magazine, and I'm happy to say that we're in a unique position that it's thriving. There's also our website, which is a big machine with over 20 million unique visitors a month. It's really a force in terms of a website. And then the third prong would be the other part of our business, which is our directory, the therapy directory business, which is also a huge machine and a real force. But for the magazine, when so many other print vehicles have more than stalled, they have ceased to publish, we're in a unique position in that we have a dual audience. We have a strong consumer audience. You can go into a Barnes & Noble and see Psychology Today, prominently racked at their newsstand, or into a Hudson News or wherever, and our subscriber base is strong too. But we also have this readership of therapists that are in our therapy directory, and that's been hugely helpful to us because we're able to really be a dual audience magazine, a consumer magazine, and also a B2B magazine for these therapists and treatment centers that get the magazine. So it's and the way that we've had to market PT has, we have had to pivot. We have had to think of this new, because you're really appealing to a totally different type of advertiser, from consumer to B2B. And that's been interesting, quite frankly. It's challenging, but also interesting to learn all these, who are the B2B advertisers? And, how do we get under the hood of that industry? And so far, so good. We've actually really been doing well in that arena.
I want to stay on this topic for a moment, because it is remarkable the staying power that you've had. Because I have a media background as well, and a lot of people may think that just because you have this powerful machine that you're just going to always have that powerful machine. And I'm curious how you think about that, because of course we at this table know that that's not true. And so it's like, how do you look at that in terms of playing offense, and how do you look at that in terms of playing defense?
Well, it's like, having a bunch of money. You don't always have a bunch of money, and you have to figure out how to keep what you got and hopefully make more. How we do it, I think the key for me has always been to look at what others are doing and how, and they can be totally dissimilar from what I'm trying to do with Psychology Today. But I look at what an example would be the Atlantic Monthly. Well, it's actually not called the Atlantic Monthly anymore. It's called the Atlantic, but I'm
you're old school. Exactly.
That's
It'll always be the monthly to us.
Always be Atlantic Monthly, no matter what they want to call themselves.
Yeah.
So to me, they're the Atlantic Monthly, and they've just been so smart about everything they do.
I agree.
They have they do live events. Their custom media, their custom publishing business is fantastic. They are still doing wonderfully well with their print edition of the magazine, and I think they're stronger now than they were 10 or 15 years ago.
I would agree with that. It wasn't that long ago that I wondered if they were going to make that pivot.
Right.
And it's like, I think that's a great example.
I look at them all the time. I really, really do. Now there's a subcategory of magazines, thought leader books, and Atlantic New Yorker is one. Atlantic Monthly is another. So I do look at those publications to see how they're doing. And the Atlantic Monthly is is doing, I think, the smartest job of all. I mean, they just had a huge multi-level, multi-tiered conference in New York that was, I guess, fantastic, and the speakers that they got and the partnerships that they forged are really remarkable and great.
Our listeners might be surprised to learn that, I think the way they utilize psychology today, I think they would find it really interesting how some of the guiding trajectory in terms of what you're doing. You're really looking at mainstream publications. You're really looking at what's happening in the mainstream consumer landscape, and it's interesting how it has a long tail into our industry. So, I mean, Lee, what do you think about that?
Well, I was going to say, what's interesting, I think for a lot of the clients that Jeff and I consult with, they are stuck working with people who have all these years of expertise in behavioral health, which can be helpful. But I think back to my time at Foundations, I had no behavioral health experience when they hired me. Mm-hmm. They were interested in my experience working, at Pro Systems, in hospital healthcare, and then also in the digital music. And it's like, what could I bring to this industry? And I think that's what you're describing. That's right. In the way that we have to look to other industries for inspiration, or else we're kind of always going to be stuck recycling.
Always. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll reference your book again, mm-hmm. Lee. It's the from battlefields mm-hmm. Of historic battles and the leaders of armies can be we get great lessons.
Absolutely.
That inform so many of the decisions that we make for our businesses that help them immensely. It's got almost a mindset, if you will.
And I was going to say, Jeff, what's interesting too, I think that I still reference Psychology Today with some of my clients who are busy needing to write some SEO content.
Right.
And the thing that I love about Psychology Today is the journalistic integrity that you guys still apply. And it would have been very easy just to get trapped years ago and just writing this kind of innocuous SEO content. And so I'm always trying to direct the companies that I consult with to, you need to have journalistic quality content, which is what you guys have always maintained that level.
For sure. And that's the thing I'm most proud of in terms of being part of Psychology Today is that Kaya Parana, our editor-in-chief, is just brilliant and mm-hmm. and remarkable in every way. And all of the editors that work with Kaya are fantastic, and not just smart, but they are so curious about what's happening in the world, and then their way of relaying that information is really compelling. The interesting thing about Psychology Today too is that most people either don't know this or forget it, is that everything that we talk about, write about, that you see in the magazine and on the website, we're science-based. We're actually on that platform I mentioned earlier, the SRDS, we're not listed in the health category. We're listed in the science category, and that's for that reason, is that we don't just talk about we won't just do an article, let's say, on jealousy, for example. If we write about that, there's a real reason that we as humans are jealous. It's a way of self-protection. It's a way of survival. And we'll talk about that as well as the emotional aspects of it too. So I don't know whether that's a good example or not. I don't know why jealousy came to mind.
Well, I think it just speaks to, Jeff and I talk a lot about, you have to be transformational, not transactional. And that's where I feel like you guys have always, that's why you've been around for 58 years, is that you've maintained your standards. You've maintained that ability to be transformational for the therapists that are involved in your directory, that are involved in your site, that subscribe to you. I mean, they're still getting this 58 years later.
Yeah, they are, and the world has changed so much, and I'm happy that you do recognize that we've.
And think about all the generations, John. I mean, here we are now. You've got baby boomers. When it first started, and then you've got the Generation X and Gen Z and Millennial. Now we're getting Gen Alpha. I mean, my goodness, this is 5 generations that are still involved and seeing value?
Gen Alpha. I wish I knew more about Gen Alpha.
Well, listen,
tell
Jeff
me,
and I
tell me about Gen Alpha.
Well,
Okay,
it's all the tweens right now, and it's really fascinating because Jeff and I record, a lot of our clients record calls, and we're already hearing on the recorded calls, we're hearing the Gen Alpha that are using AI, ChatGPT, to discover some of our clients. And they're stating that on the phone.
So two things, and not to be overly not to overly generalize, but I mean one thing to think about, and I'm curious if you're already thinking about this, John, is the video interaction is huge for Gen Alpha in terms of raised on iPads, raised on video content, learning through video content, and I mean I don't want to overgeneralize and say they don't read, but they don't read. So I'm curious how you might be thinking about approaching content as we're looking at sort of this new generation and this new divide,
TikTok world.
Well, it's
which I'm guilty of myself.
Well, I mean, you're human.
Well, maybe really human because I can spend hours. I look at my clock sometimes and realize how many hours I have spent scrolling on these on just TikTok.
Well, and it's not just content; it's information, and I think that's part of what I'd be really curious to get your take in terms of. It seems to me that you're looking at another pivot here. It seems to me
one of the things we did with the directory was we did introduce, on our directory, you always could, read about what their specialties were, not just location, but what their specialties are, and
their insurance
that they accept, and just everything you'd really want to know about a therapist before making a commitment. And there's no hierarchy on our directory. You can't buy your way to the top of it, and they are all verified and vetted. We have a whole team that does that, so not just anyone can become a member. They're all the
you actually had to submit a copy of your license.
Exactly, you do, and we hold a copy of. We have copies of.
And listen, my clients, we get the emails. Hey, your license is out of date. We need a new one. I mean, that's really remarkable.
We take that very, very seriously. But we did introduce. It's been about a year and a half ago, a video aspect where a therapist can make a short video so that someone interested in therapy can actually, because it does make a difference to hear how someone speaks, and not just, we've always had photographs of the therapist, and that's been immeasurably helpful to their practices for people to say, okay, what is this, what do they look like? Am I going to, because visually you can kind of get a sense of whether they're relatable to you or not. I mean, that is human nature. But the video is like, how do they speak? What is the cadence of their, of the way they speak, and how they say what they say. And that's been hugely helpful to forging these new relationships between a patient and the therapist in our directory. So that's something we've done, and it was a smart thing to do.
Well, Lee points out as we listen to some phone calls that that our clients receive, it's pretty clear to me that even the youngest. We'll stick with Gen Alpha for just a moment. It's clear to me that it's like they're.
What is the age of Gen Alpha again?
Well, I mean, they would be
born now to 13, 14, I think.
Yeah.
These are young. And that's what I'm saying. I was really surprised when I started hearing some of these calls and they're looking for help for their parents or looking for help for their older brothers.
Correct.
And they're in AI, ChatGPT, whatever, and they're searching.
And what I'm hearing is this is super interesting to me. It's clear that the chatbot or the AI chatbot is right there, and they're reading it, and it's listening to the phone call, and they're actually using the AI interface to actually tell them what question to ask next. It's wild. So it's like let me pause there, and it's like and get you to react to that, and it's like, how are you thinking about this?
Well, the thing that has had the most direct or immediate effect with AI has been in anyone's search for some kind of help with in the behavioral health space, whether it's a crisis in their marriage or dealing with death of a loved one and going through a grieving process and maybe seeking help for that. And any other of myriad conditions that we all face in life, is that now, in search, it's really affected, and you guys, I'm sure, can have felt this too, traffic to a site. And we, for our side, we have a wonderful team of engineers that have positioned, because we have so much information on psychologytoday.com.
Well, I mean, you're the authority leader. There's
we
no
are,
question.
and we are, and we want to stay that way too.
Right.
And we have to realize that there are 1,000 different contributors to psychologytoday.com, and they're all highly experienced, and we have so many topics that we cover. That's the reason for so many experts.
Right.
We call our contributors experts of all sorts of different disciplines. And if you go onto the website in our topic center, it is so extensive, and we really have drilled deep into each and every one of those topics. And that's what's helped us, is to keep those fresh and alive with the latest information. And that's been the key to kind of working in alignment with what AI is doing, if that makes sense.
Well, right, because even if they don't go to your website, you're still
your information has been indexed.
Right.
Did Sam Altman call
you're still the primary source. Right. You're still the primary source for most of the AI
and
citations.
thankfully get credit for it too. Which.
Well, do you mind a brief diversion here for just a second? So it's like, let's speak just briefly about intellectual property, okay? How do you feel as a publisher knowing that your content that you publish and that you own has been scraped, is going to go into these large, these LLMs, and then it's going to be put back out there? It's like, how do you view the obvious, challenge that we have as intellectual property in this space?
Well, so long as credit is given to and sourced as Psychology Today, I don't have an issue with it at all.
And are you confident that that's happening? Is I guess my question.
We monitor whether it happens or not, and there's a way of calling, of citing those that haven't given us the proper credit.
Okay.
So we handle it that.
So how robust is your enforcement for people who don't maybe do it the right way?
Jeff, I don't know how much of a hammer we are in terms of that. I know that we do monitor it carefully, and I don't know honestly what the repercussions are for someone who doesn't do we'll just say it, the right thing.
I feel like there's probably going to be, right now everybody's jumping in, and so everybody is scraping. Some are not doing a good job crediting, some are doing a great job crediting, and it's probably going to be one of these things for the next couple of years where there's a big shakeout. Like you're going to end up with a handful of really well done LLMs that'll kind of be, and I think hopefully those will be the ones that are doing the best job.
I definitely think that we're in the Wild West, and that's why I was curious to get your take on it, John. And because it's like, I think a lot of people are going to look and say, what does a leader do? And it's like, and then wondering, what you do.
And I was going to say, Jeff, and we talked a little bit about this off camera, but I see that we've gone back to 10 years ago in natural search with these directory portals that have all of a sudden popped up and scraped and stolen everybody's data. Whereas I feel like Psychology Today, you guys have maintained your authority because you're getting permission. It's the therapists, the treatment centers, the treatment providers that are loading up their individual personal information to Psychology Today, and they're putting their video, they're putting their photos, they're putting the description, and then they're sending their certificates, of business and their certifications to you. So it's not like you went out and just grabbed it. Like they are working with you all.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas we do catch people all the time. In fact, you can go to a lot of treatment center websites that aren't what we would call the best examples of the best in the treatment industry that use the Psychology Today logo,
as a trust symbol.
Exactly, and they have really they're not partnering with us. They haven't. They've just grabbed the PT logo and use it. Lee, you'll remember, and Jeff, you will too, that we did a series. We no longer do it in print, but the best in treatments, solutions in recovery, which listed. Was a directory of sorts of treatment facilities around actually around the world, mostly in the U.S., but we had European. The Kusnat was one of the.
Oh yes,
I'm always
the Swiss.
fascinated by the Kusnat.
I always tell people if I need help, I'm going to need Swiss help.
Right.
I'm going to need a whole team on a mountain.
I think it's 400,000. 400,000.
Wow.
Right. Good for them. Good for Kusnat.
If they're listening right now, we're not making fun.
We're not making fun.
no.
We want to go.
That serves a certain niche for sure.
Exactly.
It certainly does.
That's right.
And good for them. But we had that directory, and now we do. That's now a digital. We do it in a digital format, but there are so many. Facilities that didn't participate in that would then insert themselves into it in their own fashion later, and we had to monitor that because we didn't just take anyone, and they wanted to be part of that party. Be guests of that party.
Yeah, because when you do a best of, like you all
we were
had criteria.
We did. Not we didn't just go out to anyone.
Right.
We didn't just accept the participation of anyone.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of people are out there trying to get a shortcut to integrity, a shortcut to authority, and I mean, I think the through line that I'm picking up on is that, I mean, there is no shortcut to integrity. There is no shortcut to authority. It's one of the reasons you are where you are.
And it's and it comes at a price too. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. One of the ways that we have kept the directory, for instance, such a powerful machine, as I call it, and so meaningful to people and that they trust it, is that there isn't commerce allowed on the therapy directory website. Now, you can well imagine the money that we've been offered from pharmaceutical, and look, good for pharmaceutical companies. We love pharmaceutical companies. We're in business with them on the content side. We have a lot of wonderful banner advertising from pharma on pt.com and in the magazine. But for the directory, there is absolutely no. There are no banner ads. You can't buy your way to the top of the list, and that's.
Yeah, you're not all of a sudden presenting Lee Pepper therapist.
Right.
Oh, and then here's another therapist that's advertising side by side, which I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you appreciate it. I'm glad that because the consumers, those seeking help, appreciate that too, and it lends itself to their perception of us as being a credible, trustworthy source, which is what makes the directory work, which is why it has grown as it's the largest in the world, and that's one of the key reasons why.
And I should know this, John, but do you guys also service Canada?
We do.
Okay, good. So it's all North America, really.
Well, now it's international. Now it's in South America and in the UK and select countries in Europe. So it is pretty much.
And do you all also, besides therapists and treatment centers, do you also is there a section for interventionists or sober companions, sober escorts, coaches?
There's not.
Okay.
There's not. I know one of your recent guests are
Eric and Ken. Yeah.
Right. Intervention, and I met them through you actually. Yeah. We don't, or life coaches either.
Right.
That would be another example. Maybe at some point we would, or maybe there would be a subdirectory just for those disciplines.
Right.
But now we don't.
Do you? I mean, we've kind of pointed towards the future just a little bit. Is what do you see, if anything, in this successful formula that might change going forward? Or, I mean, what?
Well, I want to do things. Are you asking like in the broad sense for psychology today altogether?
Yeah, because I mean, like, part of me just like if Lee and I were to show up at a strategy meeting at your office, what would we be surprised to learn?
I don't know that you would be surprised.
Are dogs allowed?
Dogs are absolutely allowed. You might be surprised. Dogs are.
Well, we'd fit right in.
Dogs are allowed. I think you'd be surprised if we were in a new office from the last one that you saw. So I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at our new office. It's not as big, but it's awfully nice and it's working for us well. I don't know that you'd even be surprised at this, but the again back to pivoting. I'm really looking. There's another. I talked about the three prongs of PT: the magazine, the website, and the directory. But there are other spokes in that wheel too, and one of the ones is custom media, custom publishing, and that is leveraging. We've talked about the integrity of PT and the credibility of it, and the most exciting part of that for me, or something that has been so exciting and it's built on that credibility, is developing custom media for a specific client that maybe our audience is not their audience at all. Like I can give examples of some of the people that we've worked with, but it's the authority of PT that they're really interested in, and taking that authority and building something specifically for that partner, and it could be a insurance company that is appealing to HR directors, and we can build something specific.
That was my first thought. Is like surely payers are probably coming to you talking about
they
that.
are, but anyone. I mean, people could be. You could be in the funeral director. Not to be morbid, but it's a good example. The funeral business, which I don't know anything about, but
podcasts.
We could create something, because who could talk about grief better than PT? No one could talk about grief better than, or how to handle it. And what do you? And if you're talking to a industry that they're surrounded by death day in day out, how do you keep your employees happy? How do you we can build content,
I got you,
whether through custom print projects or videos or live panel discussions or a podcast series. We can build things specific to the need of that industry that's then sponsored by someone wanting to reach that industry, maybe.
So it's not necessarily for your existing audience.
That's the beauty, and that gives us such agility that you don't normally have when you're just concentrating. You don't want to take your eye off the ball. You want to keep your eye on the ball of your audience, of course. But knowing who you are and knowing the power that you have, that can then be applied to other. To creating something for someone wanting to reach their specific audience.
Got it. So the pivot here is really using the imprimatur of Psychology Today to create this custom media that they can then go in someone else's channel.
Well, Jeff, I was going to say, and now this is dating me, John, but that was one of the things that when I was at Foundations and we were doing a lot of brainstorming and work with you all, I just love that you guys could target for us. So you remember we used to do our Heroes in Recovery, and we would do the 6Ks around the country.
Yep.
And you all could deliver to the consumer base that we were interested in. I mean, we could go to zip code or city.
Right.
It was so nice not to just have to do a big scatter shotgun approach, that we could say we're going to target.
And we developed something specific for. We did those advertorials. We did wonderful advertorials written by Hera Morano, our wonderful editor at large, who's quite a renowned editor. So it was real content that we created for Foundations for that program, and we did it a few times, and they were. I remember those as being really glorious.
No, absolutely,
and a lot of fun to work on.
Well, and that's what's so amazing with how you guys have really leaned in and continue to grow your digital presence, is that now lives on forever. And if it's good quality, it's being consumed now into AI and becoming part of those results. So, kudos to you all.
Yeah, I'm assuming everything's archived, right?
Yes. Back to the beginning of PT time, almost. Well, pretty much back to the beginning.
Do you still stay in touch with some of your previous publishers and presidents? Is there like a lineage that y'all stay in
do.
touch? Are there reunions?
I don't know that we have reunions, but Lawrence Rose, who is who you know, Lee, and Jeff, I think know him too, is a great friend of mine.
Oh, good.
One of my closest friends ever,
It's so wonderful following him on Facebook because he's now retired in South Africa, right?
That's what he says. He's retired.
He's always in exotic locales.
He's always and looking.
He looks tan and fit,
looking like James Bond. Everywhere he goes. So
life goals.
Yeah. So I wish I'd like to bring him out of retirement because I think he has a lot.
Well, maybe this podcast will bring him out of retirement. We can get him back to the States.
Yeah.
So, are there any key things that you're looking forward to going into the new year for Psychology Day that you could tease our audience with? Are you guys still involved in any conferences or?
I really need to pick up my conference game because I get a lot out of those, and so one of the things I'm looking forward to in the new year is attending more conferences.
Well, Jeff and I have been to a lot this year for the first time since COVID, really, and I will say they have picked back up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been impressed with the audiences.
I should pick your brains on what's worth my time to because not all of them are and you don't want to repeat yourself because sometimes you'll go to conferences.
Can be selective.
Yeah. Sometimes I would go to conferences and see the same people that I saw just a month earlier at a different conference, and you kind of don't want to.
Well, we just had Doug Edwards on an episode of the podcast, who's with HMP Global now, and they do West Coast.
I just did a conference with them last year. Well, Psych Congress.
Yep,
yes.
Psych Congress, and then the other, he's doing an AI conference here in Nashville in April.
Oh, really?
And highly recommend that one. I think that'd be fascinating.
That's a smart company, HMP.
Yeah, no, they've pivoted a lot too. I mean, they've done really well.
Yeah.
And it's because
they do the Cape Cod conference.
They do.
Right?
Which is now going to be in Rhode Island.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, while they're restoring the old hotel. So, but I think what we've seen is there is this pent up demand for in person, which I guess I'm not surprised.
Yeah, not surprised.
But it has been.
Oh, that's what
nice.
that's what COVID did to us, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's.
And does Psychology? Do you guys do anything with webinars or any type of live, online events?
I'll tell you what we do. We guest a lot on what we don't do our own. And that's something your question about for the new year. That's a great question because this is the time we start thinking about, okay, here's what we want to do. And but in earnest, when you're really thinking about okay, what can we accomplish in 2026? And it really has everything to do with kind of the custom publishing thing that I was talking about earlier, and that would include live events and developing our own webinars, but with the right partners. For instance, we don't have a podcast because you have to have a really good reason, I think, to have one. We guest a lot, all of us, the editors, and I guest a lot on podcasts, and delighted to do so. And we get a lot out of it. But we haven't had our own because there hasn't really been a clear channel that we'd want to, in our minds at this point, that we'd want to follow that would be the definitive PT. So maybe that means that we start doing a series of podcasts or different types of podcasts. So it's not in our future, but it's something we haven't done thus far. But webinars would be a thing, and maybe even producing our own live events.
Yeah, I mean, I just go back to where this conversation started with the Atlantic. I mean, I take a look at what they've done in terms of podcasts, and it's like there's not an Atlantic podcast. What they've done is they've just decided to go deep on certain topics.
Exactly.
And it's like, that way you don't have to commit like you're talking about.
Yeah. One of the things that helped me helps me focus on that way of looking at it, that way of approaching it, is that at this point years ago, I developed a program for PT where we got into business with movie companies, with studios for releases of film. And you think, well, what's Psychology Today and movies? Well, it went gangbusters, and we have worked with every major studio out there on the release of new films, and we are part of the premiere process, and then we do these wonderful Q&A panel discussions after a movie premieres. And it was met with there's a big difference between a Hollywood Reporter or a Variety or a People magazine,
right?
And they're all fantastic,
right?
And I'm a big aside from Atlantic Monthly, I think that the Penske titles, which is Rolling Stone and Hollywood Reporter and some other stuff, I think they're doing a fabulous job, really a great job. But for us, a PT live discussion with writers and directors and the stars of a film, along with therapists that we'll bring up as part of the mix, is a fascinating discussion.
Yeah, the PT angle with therapists.
It's unlike anything else, and it's the studios love it, and they film it, and they use it for they repurpose it during the course of their press junkets for a movie, because it's not like anything that they would questions that would be asked by any other media outlet.
Jeff, who my phone is my phone's off, but it's ringing now. Is you met Noah Ben-Shia many times at some of our conferences. He just had a movie that came out,
really,
and now it's streaming on Amazon. So I'm sure he's going to be reaching out to you after this podcast.
Right. Well, you've got.
Well, I just think about where that could potentially go, and it's like obviously. The Hollywood studios, that's massive.
Yeah.
But it's like that could be anything that's got a large audience, right? So it's like you could do a PT take on podcasts, you could do a PT take on YouTube channels, you could do a because it's like that's where the eyeballs are, right? And so it's just like that's a really fascinating angle, because it's like I do think the commentary of the commentary is maybe it's a little meta, but it's like the commentary of the commentary would be
and I wonder about some of these younger, I'm going to say influencer, but that are on TikTok, that are commenting on psychology issues. Like I think that's another interesting, element.
A lot of voices are out there.
Yeah, but you guys have that interesting ability to discern who are the serious.
We do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to bring in discerning minds with really interesting and informed things to say. That's one of our biggest strengths, is that we have a wonderful roster of these experts, of these contributors that are unrivaled, really.
Well, and I wonder, how does Psychology Today consider some of these new therapeutic modalities? When I think about, there are treatment centers out there that are successfully using ice baths, and sauna. Some of them are using ketamine. Some of them are using the LG1s.
Look at it it's a great question, because we look at, it's interesting that a lot of treatment centers aren't unaware of this, and it's going to be like I'm giving away a secret here, but it's not a secret. We don't endorse one single type of therapy. We don't endorse, we just believe in 12-step or whatever. We never have, because we look at we look at and present all the aspects of what's out there in terms of, we'll use treatment as the example here, since you brought it up, what's out there, and then we'll dive into what we know about the science behind it, and does it really work? What's been proven? What have the results been thus far? What does what do the specialists and scientists think about the future of it, and present that information, and then
from a science basis,
right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because that's really the most fair way to do it. When there are so many things being introduced, I hadn't really thought about ice baths, but I didn't even know that was a therapy.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the overlay of wellness into this space as well.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of you read a lot of what some of the facilities, especially the more costly facilities, offer, and it's like, well, there are lots of spa treatments involved in this too, and
right.
Kind of.
Well, listen, I was just at a client's site where they just built a beautiful pickleball court. And I always, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes we can look at it from the spa element or the amenity element, but they have the therapist on the court. And it's just an interesting way to break through to some of the clients that might be a little more resistant in a typical group session or even a one-on-one session in an office. Get them out on the pickleball
I mean,
court
every
or have a dog on the
absolutely.
I mean,
because I really do, you know.
I mean,
absolutely.
Every engagement is a therapeutic opportunity, and so that's the
the guest house is famous for their trauma llamas, and a lot of people think it's a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. I mean, for a certain class,
They really have llamas?
They have llamas there, Nigel and Basil.
And what does one do with it?
Well, they go and they will. The thing about a llama that's interesting, that's different than typical equine therapy, is that the llama just gives it right back to you. So if you're happy, they reflect back. They're like a mirror.
Really?
And so for certain clients that are struggling to break through, when they can go and spend some time just standing there with the llamas and interacting with them, it gives the therapist a different entree point. And I think that's what, whenever somebody's questioning me about the different elements of a treatment center, like all these things, ice bath too, it's not just a gimmick. It's just an opportunity for that therapist to make a different.
So llamas can read a room.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Absolutely. Well, and this John West just did it, was just on local TV a couple months ago, talking to the interviewer there. I think it was a Tampa station that came down and talked about how they had a very difficult patient that was wanting to AMA, meaning leave against clinical advice after only a week or two there. But once they introduced the llama, and he got to spend some time alone. Not in the pen, but outside the fence, but right there with them, it really just opened up a different perspective. And again, it's not for everybody, but I think the centers that do some of those things, it's really fascinating how it just provides a different entry point, especially for a difficult case for somebody that may have failed multiple treatment centers.
Right. Oh, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. So now we got to get you down to Ocala,
I guess
and we'll get you to Tucson to do an ice bath.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a ton of territory all the way up to room reading llamas, which is fabulous. We're
going to see about getting those llamas on the cover of Psychology Today for next month.
Listen, we've had monkeys. We've had a lamb, I think, on the cover. So,
well, we'll get Judy Crane to do a personal tour for you to meet Nigel and Basil.
Crane, so absolutely.
Well, so as we're sort of wrapping up this episode, I mean, it's been tremendous to having you on. And I know this conversation could go on a long time, and we would love every minute of it.
Like the tip of the iceberg.
It feels like we really just
maybe we'll come to New York and do that.
Oh, absolutely.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to say that this is like the first of maybe a couple check-ins with you. And I think that would be really good. So we can just say this is part one. And we'll see about where the next conversation goes.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
But I'm curious. So I mean, as we kind of wrap this up, I mean, I'm going to ask the standard question here in a second, but it's like, what would you say to the listener out there that's they're trying to find their way in this space? Is like, how should they be thinking about psychology today, and what advice would you have for them?
Well, it's an easy question that I'm going to try not to complicate, because we are, in terms of how they think about us, we are what we are and what we've always been, and that is this reliable source that talks about our favorite subject of all, and that's ourselves, right?
Right.
And why we do the things we do through all stages of our lives, from the time that we're little all the way until the very end of our time, and all the things that happen during the course of that time span, relationships, marriages, births of babies, careers, and the pitfalls that hit us along that hopefully long road. So we really haven't changed in the entire almost 60 years that we've been around, but the way you find us has and will continue. The way you the platforms where our voices heard certainly changes with the times, but who we are and our approach to looking at human behavior really hasn't hasn't changed all that much, I don't think, in the time that we've been doing what we've been doing. And we just want to continue to work with really smart people, which is that's happening. That's happening. So that's, I guess, the answer.
That's beautifully said.
I think that's very succinct. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't asked you about today?
Well, I'm just happy to be in Nashville. I'll say that, and to see both of you, because we've worked together and have known each other now for quite a few years.
Yeah, for sure.
From the FRN days.
Absolutely.
And you were both doing fantastically well, which I'm thrilled about. So,
well, thank you so much for coming in today. I'm just so honored to have you in our beautiful city and also in our studio here in on MasterMined.
My pleasure.
I mean, John, Nashville looks good on you. So
that's Nashville looks good on me.
Now Jeff and I are going to squire him around to look at property.
Right.
There's panic in New York.
Right. Oh no, Nashville is. I think it's one of the prettiest cities, and a very layered city too. It's not.
Oh yeah.
It's not just one thing. It's a lot of different things, and beautiful and very friendly people. And I've always liked Nashville. For Tennessee altogether.
100%. All right. Well, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's a wrap for today's episode. On behalf of the entire MasterMined team, Matthew, thank you again for your great work. Jeff, once again, great to have you.
Always a pleasure, Lee.
If today's conversation with John sparked any new insights or ideas about leadership, media, or the future of mental health communications and advertising, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe, rate us, leave a review, and most importantly, share this episode so we can reach more people.
We are slaves to the algorithm, Lee.
Yes. We need to put that on for 2026, Jeff.
We do.
We'll see you next week on MasterMined.
That wraps up this episode of MasterMined. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, MasterMined is not just a podcast, it's a community. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and review us. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content that's relevant and relatable. Thanks again to our sponsor, Snapshot, a digital media marketing agency. And thank you for joining us on MasterMined, your behavioral health playbook.